Israel's government has approved the first phase of a ceasefire and a hostage deal for Gaza. Late on Wednesday, negotiators in Egypt signed off on the agreement, which is based on a framework laid out by Donald Trump. The U.S. will send 200 troops to Israel to monitor the ceasefire alongside soldiers from Egypt and Qatar. The deal paves the way for a ceasefire within 24 hours. Gazans have been celebrating the agreement.
No bombs, no drones, no more death. That's the hope as Gazans celebrate the new ceasefire deal.
We are very happy. We can send our children to schools without having fear. They can go out on the streets. We can sit in our tents without fear. Thank God we've reached the stage where the war is over, even though our wounds will not be gone.
But there are no schools. The war and the constant displacements have shattered Gaza's social fabric. Around 80% of the buildings have been destroyed in 2 years of Israeli bombardments, displacing nearly all residents of the Strip from their homes. Essential supplies such as food, water and medicine have been held back, and a famine declared in the territory. The United Nations says its staff are ready to step up aid deliveries immediately.
So here is what we plan to deliver in the first 60 days of the ceasefire. We will aim to increase the pipeline of supplies to hundreds of trucks every day. Food, we will scale up the provision of food across Gaza to reach 2.1 million people who need food aid and around 500,000 people who need nutrition. Famine must be reverted in areas where it has taken hold and prevented in others.
According to the Hamas-run health ministry, more than 67,000 people have been killed, most of them civilians. For those who have survived, the New Deal is a very small first step towards recovery.
There is no joy in the heart after 2 years. You can see how Gaza has been destroyed. All of Gaza is destroyed. We're going back to rubble, with no house, no water, and no electricity.
We were pulled out from under the rubble after I lost my father, my mother, my sister, and my family. I don't feel happy. I'm not excited about anything because we've lost so much.
The explosions may have stopped for now, but the lives and livelihoods destroyed by 2 years of war will take years and years to rebuild.
After Israel's cabinet approved the first phase of the peace deal, Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked Donald Trump and his U.S. envoys for their help in achieving the agreement.
We're at a momentous development in the last 2 years. We fought during these 2 years to achieve our war aims, and a central one of these war aims is to return the hostages, all of the hostages, the living and the dead. And we're about to achieve that goal. We couldn't have achieved it without the extraordinary help of President Trump and his team, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner.
We asked some people in Tel Aviv for their thoughts on the peace agreement.
I came to support the families, especially the families, and to enjoy the greatest simcha, the greatest happiness. Today is the biggest day for the whole nation of Israel. We are so happy.
2 years like hell. It was so difficult, and I know we still have a lot of problems, but I think it's time to get a little bit of happiness, I hope.
Happy to be here, happy to celebrate everything that's going on right now with the hostage deal. Hopefully be coming here in several days, so we're extremely excited.
Giorgio Cafiero is the CEO and founder of Gulf State Analytics, a geopolitical risk consulting firm based in Washington, D.C. He joins me now. So the Israeli cabinet has approved the deal, and Hamas says the war is completely over. But how credible is that claim, given Israel still holds much of Gaza?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me back on your network. Certainly a big deal that the Israeli government has approved phase 1 of this ceasefire plan. But, you know, the process moving forward is going to be very complicated, and it's not going to be handled overnight. This could take quite a bit of time for the parties to get to phase two, assuming they even do get to phase two. There is a pretty murky picture right now, many unknown variables. We do not know exactly when the Israeli hostilities against Gaza will come to a stop, how far back the Israeli ground forces are going to move. Many issues surrounding the questions of Hamas disarming, the questions about Hamas's role in post-conflict Gaza remain open. So, like I said, so many unknown variables. Unfortunately, there are many ways that this ceasefire could go sideways. We need to stress it's a very fragile ceasefire, but I think the optimism on both sides and the sense of happiness on the part of Palestinians and Israelis is very nice to see, and it's understandable that after 2 years and a few days, people on both sides are very happy to have a real sense of hope right now.
As part of the deal, thousands of Palestinian prisoners are set for release. Does this deal change the balance of power between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, I mean, politically speaking, both Hamas and the PA have huge problems in the eyes of the general Palestinian population. But right now, your question about Hamas's standing and the future of Hamas, we don't exactly know what Hamas is going to look like once the dust is settled and we move on with phase one, potentially into the following phases of this so-called peace initiative. It's not exactly clear what role Hamas is going to even have in Gaza. So it's a little difficult at this point to sort of assess the balance. But what we can definitely say, though, is that Hamas has been significantly weakened as a consequence of the past 2 years of everything that has unfolded in Gaza. So many of its leaders have been killed in Gaza, Iran, and the group has certainly, I'm not saying the group is eradicated. Hamas continues to be a reality in the Palestinian political theater, but I think it's tough to deny that Hamas is at a weaker point today than it was just a little more than 2 years ago.
All right, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. That was Giorgio Cafiero, CEO and founder of Gulf State Analytics. As always, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yusuf Munayr is head of the Palestinian-Israeli program and senior fellow at the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. He joins us now. So how do Palestinians view this deal? Is it seen as a real step towards ending the war, or just a temporary pause that leaves many of the core issues unresolved?
Well, I can tell you that from what we have seen from Gaza so far since this has been announced, that people are, of course, overjoyed at the possibility that the genocide may finally come to an end. And given what they have went through day in and day out over the last several years, and much longer than that, of course, that's totally understandable. At the same time, I think that there is a lot of skepticism about whether or not this will hold, particularly given the fact that earlier this January, we went through a very similar process where we thought we had an agreement that would last, be multi-phased, and finally end in a conclusion to this. But of course, the Israelis backed out of that agreement, and the Americans did not hold them to their word. That's the big concern at this stage. Will Donald Trump be able to continue to hold the Israelis to their commitments that have been reached in this agreement, or will they be permitted to return once again to destruction and massacres in Gaza?
All right, so many open questions still, and one of those regards weapons in Hamas's possession. Now, Hamas didn't agree to disarm so far. Could this be a major stumbling block towards implementing a lasting deal?
Yeah, there are, of course, many different provisions that were laid out in the plan that was published by the White House a couple weeks ago when President Trump stood beside the Israeli Prime Minister at the White House. And there are many different places where this can go wrong. The one interesting thing, though, about the document that has now made its way through the Israeli press that shows the agreement that was reached in Cairo between the mediators and Israeli and Palestinian negotiators is that the Israelis have committed to, quote, end the war upon ratifying this agreement within the Israeli government, which is something that happened tonight. And so this is a major change from the positions that the Israelis have been willing to agree to previously, because they have previously stated that they will not end the war or agree to end the war before achieving the very different aims that they lay out, some of them in Trump's 20-point plan. But now they're agreeing to effectively end the war prior to that. That's a major change here, and something that, if Donald Trump can in fact guarantee, could bring a major and decisive, perhaps, conclusion to this horrific genocide.
Now, moving forward, many in Israel want to see Hamas out of power in Gaza. Now, if Hamas were to step aside under the deal, is there a group or a person the Palestinians would accept as a legitimate leader?
I think the Palestinian position is quite clear on this. As far as Hamas is concerned, they have stated now for quite some time that they'd be willing to step away from power in Gaza. And one has to speak honestly today on the ground in Gaza. While Hamas may still be present, it is under deep Israeli military occupation. So it's not being governed now by anyone other than the Israeli military presence, if we're speaking in real terms. But Hamas has said for quite some time that they'd be willing to essentially see a different Palestinian administration of Gaza. And I think all Palestinians are united behind the idea that Gaza is Palestinian territory. It is the home of the Palestinians who live there. And those Palestinians have a right to exercise self-determination and should be governed only by Palestinians, and Palestinians whom preferably they elect. This is how it should work. So that is not just, I think, a Hamas position, but a position that is shared by all Palestinians and really by people around the world who believe in the principle of self-determination.
And that is actually an interesting point. As you said, Israel is still insisting on long-term security control over Gaza. So do Palestinians believe the ceasefire opens a path to real sovereignty, or do they fear it could cement occupation under another name? Briefly, if you could.
Well, the Israelis have been very clear about this. The entire world wants to see Palestinian self-determination. We've seen a growing chorus of states recognize a Palestinian state. But the Israeli prime minister, who we should remember is an indicted war criminal, has said plainly, there will be no Palestinian state. I will not allow it. So his only formula seems to be a continuation of de facto apartheid. This is something, of course, that the world will reject.
All right. That was Yusuf Munir with the Arab Center in Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.